All right, so it's Wednesday. Friday we'll do the midterm in the class, and so today will just be another day of review. What I hope to do is spend about maybe the first 30 minutes going over some of the review topics and stuff there, and then for the last half of class, giving you time to either work on your own review and stuff, or else again work on some of the extra credit practice problems for those stuff and see. So we were kind of working through the midterm review topics here last class, so I thought I'd kind of go through those. I will note we're trying to get caught up on grading in this class. My hope is that by hopefully tonight we'll have everything graded for this, so you can look back at some of the assignments also and any feedback there for that. So, okay, what did we do? We did Unit 1, just printing. We talked about variables and stuff in Unit 2 there, how to do input and output there. And then we started talking about in Unit 3 how to do if-then statements for this. So you should be familiar with those. Write yourself different kinds of if-then statements. Be familiar with just, an if else, an if, then, an if else if, and then another else, so you could string together a couple things together with that. We did examples, there are some good review questions on it. And then we did the assignment we did. I think you could either do like the tuition one where you were asking what the tuition was and what fees applied based on how many credits you had. Different fees would kick in for that. I forget what the other options were there. But again, those would be good assignments to review, go back to and look. My feeling when I write this is that if you've done the assignment, worked through it there, you can maybe just look through it again to remind yourself of it, but you should be in pretty good shape there. We've got some students, I think, who are relying on AI more than they should to do the assignments. And so if you're relying on AI a lot to do the assignments, you may not be internalizing this stuff as much. So when it comes to the exam, you might struggle with how to structure these if-then. So again, this is an important time to make sure you understand these concepts here. Let's talk a little bit about the switch statement and how that could be used. So again, when can we use a switch statement? I'm going to do, I think, a new sandbox here today. Let's see what's in this. Oh, maybe I'll just delete this out here. Okay. So I'm trying to think, look at an example that would use a switch statement. And so to do switch statements, you've got to be comparing some integer or some value to a number of different cases here and look at a number of different options here, just like, maybe we're saying enter your age, we read that in, and rather than doing some greater than or less than, we just say if age is equal to some value here, like 21, or let's say again. And then if we have a series of else statements where, again, only one of them is true here, then we can look at that. So again, I'm asking, like, if the age is 16, we're doing this. Else, if the age is 18, you can do this. Else, if the age is 21. So I'm not doing any less than or greater than, just comparing some variable and an integer or a string, something like that, to certain values. And then if that's the case, we can replace this series of if then else ifs with a case statement. So again, it'll ask us here, convert this to a case statement. So we can do that. So I'm going to put the if then back here just so we can see how it's similar. So again, with the case statement, we say, or the switch statement, we say switch, and then the variable that we want to compare with age. And then we say case, and in each case is one of our values here. So here's the age is 16, here's age is 18, here's age is 21 for this. And then we do what we want, and then we have our break statement here. If we don't have our break statement, it'll continue onward for this. There are times where you wouldn't want the break statement, interesting enough. So like if you are 18, you can vote, but you can also drive, right? So we can set this up. Now we'd have to set this up. Let me just move this the other way around, because again, we can check these in any order. So I'm going to move them around here. So if you're 21, so right now, let's comment this part off. Right now, it'll only print off one of these things because we have the break statement in here. So if I say my age is 21, it'll say I can drink, but it won't say I can vote or I can drive here for this. But if I were to get rid of these break statements here, and then run it and enter 21, it'll tell all of these. So you can drink, vote, and drive. So again, if you don't have a break statement, it just continues on through all the other statements here. Once it finds a true case, it keeps going until it hits a break for this, right? And so that's why we almost always want the breaks in here. Yeah, so that's why, I mean, here it would be important to have these in the right order. Because again, if I had them in the, from the, I had them in this order and I didn't have the break statements in here, it is not checking. It is just once this 18 is true, it'll do all of these. So it'll say, if I say I'm 18, it will say everything, because once it finds a true case statement, it'll just keep going in until it hits a break statement down here. Okay. So yeah, so while I can check them in any order, if I want to have these fall through cases, then it matters which order I put them if I want them to fall through to the other ones. So again, you should be able to read a switch statement, predict the output of a switch statement, that sort of stuff with a switch statement. I won't generally require you to write a switch statement, but I will ask you questions about it on the exam. for it. So I can certainly give you a switch statement or ask you questions about it, what it's going to print out or stuff like that. So, okay. Next thing is more advanced kind of if-then stuff is this string variables and trying to repeat something or check if something equals yes or no, some string value here, and using this dot equals. So again, let's say we want to repeat something and we want to ask the user, do you want to continue? So maybe we do a loop here. Let's say we say do this loop while and then we'd ask the user here, do you want to enter another age? And yes, no, or something like that. So we'd ask them that. And then we'd read that in. We'd maybe read in this user choice as a string. I have to watch. We run into this problem where after we read in an integer, we are still on that line. So one thing I tend to do is anytime after I read in like an integer or something like that, I also just do a next line to get to the end of that line. Okay, so here we're reading in the user's choice and we're saying, so while like user's choice, and I want to say equals yes, and this won't work for this. Okay, so let's try to figure out why it won't work. One of the reasons is that user's choice is defined inside the while loop, and this is outside the while loop. So I have to declare this outside my while loop. By declare, I mean state the type and the name of the variable. So I'm going to say, so now anywhere in my program now I can use user's choice here. So now I can just say user's choice here and here. But now, so this will handle the scope. I can access user scopes, but it's still warning me here that I'm checking this the wrong way. Comparing strings with equals or not equals is not good here. Doesn't generally do what we want it to do. It's looking more like at the memory address of where yes is stored and where user's choice is stored in the computer, and comparing those memory addresses rather than the actual string values there. So I want to say user's choice dot equals here. And I actually probably want to say equals ignore choice. I want to do equals ignore choice. I mean, not ignore case there. So now it'll keep repeating while they keep saying yes for this. So again, anytime we're comparing strings together, we want to say one of the strings and then dot equals and another string for this. Now, I was just wondering, in some languages you can do, like you can say a sample string in quotes, and then you can do a dot. Yeah, you can do this here. Yeah, so you can actually, you can do just a string dot equals something like that. So we usually do it with a variable that's a string, like user's choice dot equals, but you can do it with an actual string also. So again, here we're doing the same thing. We're looking at user's choice. We're setting it equal, or here we're setting equal. Here we're just we're reading it in there, and then we're saying this. If it's yes, you selected yes, no, no. So, and here again, we're showing this equals ignore case. And again, you should be able to follow the logic of this. Like this is a more complicated if-then statement. You should be able to follow the logic of it. So if I were to ask you that and say, what is the output of that? You should be able to tell me without running the code, what is the output here? And just work your logic through this. You know, say, oh, age is 11. Okay, is age greater than or equal to 12? No. So then we're skipping down here. We're skipping all of this. And then we're doing this. And just saying that part. Any questions about switch statements, strings? So like if, let's just do this one. So if I say user's choice is yes, lowercase, and I then ask, does user choice equal ignore case to with it all uppercase? Will that be true? And it will be true. It'll say you've selected yes. So if I run this, it'll say you selected yes, because even though this is all lowercase letters and these are uppercase letters, it ignores that stuff. But if I just say equals, it actually compares letter by letter, and the lowercase y and the uppercase y are different. So now it'll say you selected no, even though you said, we have yes and we're comparing it against yes, right? So, okay. Other questions about this? Let's talk loops. So we have three types of loops: a for loop, a while loop, and a do while loop. Generally, the for loop is where when you're starting a loop or stuff, and when you start, you know how many times you're going to repeat it. Then you can use a for loop. So again, when you get down to loop and say, maybe let's say there's 12 months a year, you want to do something 12 times. That's a for loop generally. Or like in the example we're entering your mileage. One of the examples in the assignment was entering miles for your trips. And you went on, maybe you filled your gas tank up 5 times in the last month. You want to enter 5 mileages in. You can ask how many trips did you take, and they can enter 5. And then you're going to start the loop. At the start of the loop, you're going to do it 5 times. So you can use a for loop. Even though the user told you that, you can still, at the start of the loop, we're going to do this 5 times here. Now, if I look at this statement here, like we enter an age and we ask, do you want to enter another age? And we read that in to user's choice here. When we start this loop, we don't know how many times they're going to say yes. They could say yes once. They could say yes 100 times. We just don't know here. So we can say yes, and we can run it again there, but we don't know how many times. So we can't use a for loop, or at least it doesn't work very well to use a for loop here with this. So then we have our while and do while loops. So which one, like here, I wanted to make sure, I always wanted to do this once and then ask the user if they want to continue. So if you always want to do things once, you want to do it once and then do the while and do while. So that means you do it once and then you have the while check at the end. If I wanted to have this so that maybe they didn't want to enter it at all, 0 or more, they might not want, you might want to skip this section, then that's a while loop here. So if I change this, so I'm going to move this while part up here. While the user's choice equals ignored case yes here. Now, if I want to do this, I'm going to have to ask this ahead of time. I'm going to ask, do you want to enter an age? I'm not going to say an age. I'm just going to enter an age. Yes, no, read that in. And then if they said yes, it'll do it once and ask them, do you want to enter another age? So now, oops, I'm going to stop this. I want this actually down in here. Okay. Okay. So do you want to enter an age? Just so I could say yes, and I can enter an age and do something. Do you want to enter another age? I could say yes, or I could say no there. And I can also do it without ever doing, do you want to enter an age? No. And then it doesn't want to do this. So again, with do and a while and a do while, you can ask yourself like that. So explain, and you should be able to explain the differences between a while and a do while. So same with this, you should be able to follow through with these loops here. So describe what the following code does, and so one thing I think is useful is that you can just follow through. I'm going to see. We mentioned just briefly, but you can use breakpoints. I think that's a good way of visualizing these loops. So I'm going to click on one of these numbers here. I'll put a little dot here. Now, if I do this run with the debug run here, it'll run until it gets to this spot. And then there are different options here. The best is step over. Step over will step over each, will basically execute each statement and go to the next one here. So I can just watch it go. And now it wants some input here. I'm going to do some input. And then it'll step through this. And I can see it going through this this code again and again and again and watch. And I can also see the variables and what the variables are set as we're going through this code for this. So sometimes using this debug, if you're trying to understand, what it does. And again, I basically want you to be able to do this yourself. So I think if I give you a statement like this or a little loop like this and ask you what does this do, you should be able to tell me what the output. Follow the logic through the loop there. Keep track of the variables. Go step by step. So okay, user's choices, yes. Do print. So it's going to print this out. It's going to print this out, and then I'm going to read in a user's choice again, and then while user's choice is no here for this. And so here, in order to know what this does, you've got to know what the user enters. So it will keep looping here. So if the user enters, if the user enters yes, it will quit here. Otherwise, it'll keep telling you to have a happy day. Because that's all that we need is a little positive psychology. The computer just say, have a happy day, and keep saying that until you're happy, and that'll solve our problems. See, so we're just making the world happier with this line of code here. So, Should we jump down to for loops? So if you remember, for loops are like this, right? For int count equals 1 while our count is less than 4. And at each time, we're going to say count equals count plus 1 or count plus increment count and print this out. So again, what does this print out? This should print out count is 1, count is 2, count is 3. Does it print out count is 4? No, because this is less than 4. It'll keep doing it. So when it is 4, that'll be false. So it won't print it out. It'll print out 1, 2, count is 1, count is 2, count is 3, and then it'll quit there. So again, you should be able to work through that. And again, it's good to just like play with some of these things here. So here it prints it out and then try, well, what happens if I say count equals, or if I change this from 4 to 10? What does that do? What if I say instead of count equals count plus 1, I say count equals count plus 2? What does that do here? That's going to go 1, 3, count by every other number because I'm adding 2 each time through my loop. So again, you just be aware that, but again, kind of before my loop, I do this. I do my loop and then I check this condition. And then after I've gone through my loop, I do this and check my condition again for this. So. We looked at, so any for loop could be written as a while loop or a do while loop. We often call them counter controlled, but again, the for loop is just a shortened, a quick version of that. So. Last thing we looked at was methods here. So we had a method. A method is just like a little segment of code. We're giving a name and moving out of this. So here's our print star method. So again, main is a method. So we would declare this outside of main. After main, we'd put this there. And then to call this method, oops, we would just say, all right, call this name, print stars. Now, sometimes they'll have parameters. So this requires an argument or parameters, the number of stars as an integer. So I have to tell it how many stars to print out there. So I can say print out 5 stars for this. So again, that's just our method and our argument that we can pass here. We don't have to just use a number there. We can also put in we can pass a variable. So if I say num equals 15, I can then say print stars with num. Oops, I have to say what type it is. Okay. And then so what it does is we call print stars and then num stars is initialized with whatever this was, this expression or variable or constant was. So it'll be set to 15 and it should print out 15 stars. Now this is a public static void method. So void methods we call on a line by themselves. What about this sort of method that returns a value? Like this finds the max of 2 variables, 2 integers. So it's not a void. So I don't want I could call it, I could say max of 123 and 198. I can call it there, but then it's not going to do anything. It's going to find those max values and just leave it there. Not print it out, not store it, not do anything with it there. So again, generally when we call these values, we want to store these in some, maybe another variable. So maybe we'd say int largest is, or yeah, large, let's say largest is that. And then maybe we print out the largest here. Maybe we'll use this in our print stars. Let's do 11 and 8, and then we'll call print stars with that value. Oops. So we're going to call print stars with that value. So now it'll print out, it'll find the largest of those values and use that. And again, I can make this 4 and 3, so I can see it a little better. And it'll find the largest of those and print. So again, if this is returning some value, and we say return here, right? And we call it here. You can also, we could actually have done it just this way. We could have just done it not with a variable, but skip that part, but just call it inside another method, or like inside a print statement or something like that. And that would work too. Let's see. General questions. When using scanner variable for input, we always name it input. Is this a required name, or can we name it something else? So we often see AI generates examples with, let's call it scanner or something like that. So you don't have to call it input. We just do it by default. That's, in most of our examples. So. There are a bunch of predict the output. So these are good sample questions. So I'm going to stop talking and have you. So if you want to work through some of these, again, we've gone through the unit reviews here. I would suggest you start working through these, predict the output. Can you predict the output? And again, you can run these yourself. You can. Again, in the exam, you won't be able to, but for now, you can just put those in here. And run it. And does it print out what you think? What do you think that's going to print out, and does it run it that way? So, okay, so I'm going to stop talking. I'll wander out. If you have questions, I can help you out. Sound good? But we'll just let you work the rest of the class on this, any sort of review you want.